Okay, so we're here again with another interview now with my student Nathaniel. Nathaniel and I have been working together for the past 7 months or so. So, hello, Nathaniel. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm doing great.
Great, great. How long exactly have we been working together? I
Um,
think
it
it's
was it was the end of December, early January, so literally the beginning of the year.
yeah, and we are at it's June the 6th. Okay, and what makes you want to learn Spanish? Like, why did you begin learning Spanish, and why did you begin learning Spanish? How did you learn Spanish before me? How was your experience?
Yeah, good question. I took Spanish class in school for the first time in eighth grade, and then continued about half of high school. So I really enjoyed learning it then. Then I had a few years off until the end of college, but I wasn't really applying it to anything. And then once I graduated, I completely stopped learning. But years later, when I started traveling again, I really was dedicated to, or I felt like I would like to learn a second language. Um, so I started, using some of those apps, using
Mm,
Duolingo, and decided I really wanted to dive in a little
mm.
deeper into learning.
Yeah, being fair. When Nathaniel came to me, he was with Duolingo. He was with a couple of YouTube channels. I have to say that he chose wisely. He chose very good resources, and he was very committed to learn. So when he came to me, he had a good level. I mean, considering that he was learning on his own and considering that it was his first foreign language, he had a decent level. He had like an upper A1, A2 level. So, Nathaniel, why did you come to me, basically? Why did you, because you are learning, right? So um, why did you come to me? Yeah.
Um, I didn't have, I felt like I was getting a decent amount of input, every day or definitely every week, but I didn't have the proper structure. And I decided that structure was going to be important on
Mm,
this journey because I didn't want to get to the level where I can just understand a little bit and maybe just speak at a restaurant or in very simple situations. I wanted to get to the point where I can say pretty confidently that I speak this language, 85,
Did you
90 plus
feel,
percent.
did you feel stuck with the language? Did you feel a little bit stuck, or did you feel like you were learning, but maybe you were not learning at the pace you wanted to?
Um, I was getting a little better, but I was not getting the opportunity to learn the actual rules of the language and how to speak it clearly. So I really wanted
Mm.
speaking practice. I didn't know, I figured if I just listened, I wasn't going to get all the grammar rules and know how to actually, in situations, use Spanish properly. And that was important to me. So, um, you know, seeing that this was, skyrocketing your Spanish, I was like, that's exactly what I want to happen. So,
Yeah, proper title, right?
yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned grammar rules because I always say that, grammar rules and memorizing grammar and all of that has been very demonized over the years because it's true that traditionally foreign languages were taught the same way Latin was taught. I took Latin at high school and college because that's a thing here in Spain. People take Latin. So I took Latin,
Mhm.
and it's true that traditionally English, for example, when it was first introduced in the Spanish educational system, English was taught the same way as Latin, meaning it was horrible. It was awful. Like you had to do things like the indirect speech, like he told me he was going to do the, and it's like, I'm not gonna really, I mean, yes, I'm going to use it, but people would know how to use the indirect speech. and not know how to order food at a restaurant, right? So
Hmm.
the result of all of that is that people have a very bad image on grammar, and I get it. Okay, and it's true that sometimes we overwork on grammar, but at the same time, I always say the same thing: we are not that intelligent. We're not babies. We're adults. And sometimes you know, we're not that intelligent to guess the language rules.
Hmm.
So, what's your take on this? How do you think in grammar? Because the way that I like to teach grammar, as you know, is showing people how logical the language can be, right? So if I say me gusta el chocolate instead of yo gusta el chocolate, why does that happen, right?
Hmm.
So, how have you been experimenting that? How do you think grammar is done or grammar is approached here? When I say here, you know what I mean.
Hmm.
We're talking on Google Meet, but you know what I mean here.
Right, right. I think that the combination of homework that I'm
Mhm.
doing, that is, some of it's listening, some of it is um, vocabulary practice, grammar practice, and then getting to also work on that in class, um, and having the explanations of, these are the scenarios where you are using this type of phrase, and this is why. I think that's very helpful. It can be confusing to process through, especially if it's a completely different idea than I use right now in English. So I have to like write those things down and really repeat and repeat and repeat them. But it's helping me speak clearer, I would say,
Yeah.
to know those differences.
Yeah. So long story short, you think that those little like grammar explanations, which at the end of the day is explaining when things are used, more than how things are used, is when things are used.
Mhm.
Once you know the when and the why, you get the how, right?
Mhm, mhm. I agree with that.
Um, yeah, and what? Because that's another point. At some point, we decided to do a tandem, and Nathanael joined Megan, who hopefully I'll interview her the following weeks. So, how has been the experience working with another student at class? Working with another person, not having individual classes anymore.
Yeah, I really like it. I think that if there are days that are tough, or there's times where I'm not understanding something, she's understanding something, or vice versa, I think that helps to see, because now if I don't understand something, or if it's taking a while for me to understand something, and the other learner is processing it a different way, that can be helpful, because you have both the teacher dynamic and the student dynamic. So it's been nice to kind of view it as a team. That's personally been helpful for me.
Yeah. I think it also helps a lot in terms of accountability and in
Mhm.
terms of um at the end of the day, it's the social aspect of it.
Mhm.
Learning language is one of the most social things you can do in life. So yeah, that's great.
Agreed.
And in terms of like your personal linguistic development, how much have you improved in these 5 last months? Be honest.
Um, so I'll start with, I think sometimes it's hard to, in your own mind, track where you are, because
Mm,
language is so complex.
mm,
You can think like, wow, well, I am not at the highest level of Spanish yet, or I'm not at the highest level of speaking. And like throughout 4, 5, 6 months, you realize when you're reading things, you have a much better comprehension of it.
mm,
I feel very confident that from the end of December, early January to now, when I when I read stuff, it makes more sense to me. When I'm hearing things, I'm picking up on different tenses way more than I was before. So I think there's been a solid amount of improvement, and I anticipate to keep building on it to the point where that just comes quicker and more natural to me.
mm. Great, great. So goal accomplished, I guess, for now. Good.
Yeah, I have to
Um,
take the little wins along the way.
Yeah. No, well, the plan with you and with Megan as well is for you guys to be fluent. Fluent doesn't mean proficient; it means fluent. You know, it means being able to hold long conversations, to watch movies. Plan is we are in June, so it'll be the plan is to get you guys fluent by February, March next year. So I always say the same. If you stay consistent for a couple of years, 2 years and a half, 3 years at most, you are gonna get fluent. And if you spend 1 year extra to get proficient, you are going to get proficient. So, languages are hard, but they're
Hmm.
far from being impossible. You just have to do daily work. And you don't even have to be 2 hours a day with just 30 minutes a day and everything. So, one last question before the last question. Um, how do you now feel about the different myths surrounding language learning? Because again, you're going to get fluent probably by February, March. And I get people on my DMs every single day saying, hey, since I live in a Hispanic country, it's impossible for me to get fluent. Since I don't have many movies in Spanish to watch, and I'm not going to get fluent. So how do you feel about these myths? This wasn't prepared, but I am really interested to see your take on this.
Um, that's a really good question. I think that um, I agree when people say every day or multiple days a week of studying and doing some sort of learning really helps you get a long way. Um, I don't I don't disagree that if you are spending an extra full day around only Spanish speakers, you probably are in an environment where um, you are forced to maybe practice more. And, as we said, probably continuous practice helps. But I do think that you can reach proficiency or fluency if you are speaking somewhat every day, reading every day, writing every day. I think that you can still get there.
Yeah.
And then, your time spent speaking more and more and more will just help you feel more comfortable.
Yeah, it's funny because most of people that I know who speak multiple languages, they've only lived in one or two
In one.
countries. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a I speak English, French. I've never really left Spain. Like I've never really traveled or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
It's
especially
definitely
nowadays, especially nowadays, it's a very dummy assumption actually. So the very last question now for real is how do you see yourself in relation to Spanish, how do you see yourself the following months? How do you see yourself next year or 2 years from now with your Spanish?
Well, I have a few trips to Spanish speaking countries over the next year and a half. And, you know, I want to feel, I see myself being very comfortable understanding and speaking in different environments, before next year ends. I know I think I'm going to get better every single month, but by the end of next year, I would feel very confident even doing my job with Spanish speakers and not feeling like I can't necessarily communicate the way I would in English. So I do think that I want to say I'm confidently fluent in the language by the end of next year. And that's even knowing, with you saying reaching fluency in February, March, or the spring. I plan to continue bettering that
Yeah,
through the year.
yeah. Yeah, we plan to get to the C1 level actually, to get to the C1 test actually. Great. So do you have anything to tell the audience? Any tip, any advice, any message you would like to share?
That's also good. So I would say that even in times where language learning or learning Spanish seems tough, or you feel like you are hitting a plateau, or maybe, wow, I don't know why it seems harder this week or this month has just been hard. I would say just keep going. Keep trying, maybe even changing it up a little bit, studying a different way, studying in a different place, just to make sure that, I think the worst thing you can do is just to stop entirely,
Yeah.
because that's not going to help you continue growing. So just keep pushing through. I think that if you're really dedicated, you'll reach where you want to reach.
Great. So thank you very much for this interview, Nathaniel. Really appreciate it. And well, I'll see you this week in our next class.
Perfect. Thank you.